All right, hey, listen. A few weeks ago, Matthew put me on to a blog post by Kem Meyer, and it was entitled "4 Reasons Why It's Okay to Pass Notes in Church." And so I shot her out an email and asked if she could come on the show for just 10 or 15 minutes. She said she would do that, and I believe we have her on the Skype line right now.
We do.
Kem, how are you this morning?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing fine. All right, so listen, we were told not to pass notes in church, and so now you're telling us it's okay?
Yeah. And I guess there's a new definition of what a note is, too.
Yeah. Okay, so we loved this post. Talk to us a little bit about it and the 4 reasons that you wrote about.
Well, I think that all of us have the best intentions. I mean, it's what we talk about a lot, and we get caught up on the methods, and the methods become our theology, and what we're used to. We get so stuck in man-made rules or man-made mediums, and we don't understand, or we're so fearful of what's unknown, or
Yeah.
we're only aware of the downside. But it's just like I was trying to find it before you guys called me today. There was a quote. You remember when the Bible was printed, like the first time it was printed in movable type and or on the printing press? And you remember, I was trying to find that quote, but I mean, there was an uproar from all the priests and church leaders and fearful of how that was going to compromise the gospel.
Yeah, the fear was it was going to get out to the people.
We can't have it in their hands.
Yes, and that it would be misconstrued and
Right.
misused and all that stuff. And it's just like every new medium that's introduced, it creates this thing. And I think that especially Christians, because they're trying so hard, and especially guardians of the church, our pastors
Yep.
and our church leaders, they're trying so hard and so trying to be intentional of protecting it, that they're protecting a lot of man-made rules and not looking at the heart behind it. And also, there's a cultural shift. I think there's a cultural part of connecting with people that's often ignored.
Absolutely.
I was talking to a friend of mine about this yesterday, and Jesus was all about breaking man-made rules, and just destroying the things that just didn't matter. And it was all about contextualization, and environment was so important. And a lot of, the question isn't would Jesus use an iPad or an iPhone to read the Bible? That's not the question. I mean, the culture today, it's all this transmedia, the big gargantuan one place that you go to for the story. There's not one place. There's little intersections, little pieces of the story that all work together, and that's how I look at the e-tools for our spiritual development and reading the Bible. None of it is to replace traditional tools. It's all, if used properly, it can enhance. So I guess I tried to make it real simple, just like on a practical term, and elevate the 4 things I had called it, because I don't remember. First of all was just elevating that story, and it gets people talking. The gospel is shared from story to story, from person to person, life on life discipleship. And what's the best way to get people sharing the story, talking about their faith journey? Make it portable, make it easy for them to carry. It's not something to be feared. And our online tools or our mobile tools, if used productively, and if we help people see what the downsides to the upsides are, I mean, it's just everything's in moderation, but this can actually enhance face-to-face communication. It can enhance your offline spiritual growth. It's just a connector. And the other one is just rallying around, again, that transmedia, all these little sections of the story that you can touch with, and they layer on top of each other and reinforce a common theme. Why would we not want to reinforce God's word in all kinds of different layers? And so the passing notes in church was just relate. I read that article you sent to me. Did you talk about that earlier?
Yeah, well, last week we talked about it, but we thought Matthew said, "Man, we need to talk to Kem about that." The whole thing is just, I mean, it's amazing to me that you have. And for those who don't know what we're talking about, this is a story that we referred to last week where a pastor goes to a church and he has his Bible on an iPad, and the minister realizes it, and so he encourages people to take their Bibles out, and then he says, and I'm not talking about your iPhone or your iPad, I'm talking about the Bible.
While looking right at the guy, right at this pastor. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were just curious what you thought about that.
It made me sad.
Yeah, no, seriously, it is. I mean, it's sad, but it's funny. I mean, it's just like, because it seems a little bit outrageous that you would make that distinction.
But you know what? I want to just share a story from back in the day. Let's see. My daughter's 23 now, but back when she was like 13 and she was a freshman in high school, that's when like chat was becoming real, just the IMing and AOL.
AOL
I wasn't familiar with AOL, and I was familiar with the technology, but I was getting so hung up on language and so hung up on the medium that I was just like, I didn't take the time to get to know about what people were rallying around. So my daughter starts IMing all these kids in school, and all, this is my friend, this is my friends. And I'm just talking to my friends, and so these friends, she didn't know their last names. She never spoke to them in school. So I would freak out because that's not the definition of a friend. And she's calling them her friends. Well, the language had changed in the culture. The definition of a friend it wasn't the same as it was when I was growing up. And so I'm getting all hung up on the language, and so I'm like, well, you're changing truth. Well, no, she wasn't changing truth. I could still show her what real life friendship was, and we could still nurture that. The instant messaging tool didn't cancel all that out. And I think that when I look at so I made that mistake. I'm just saying we all have little areas in our life where we're like, we mock or we discount something that we deem as unnecessary.
Yep.
Or we deem as we say it's irrelevant. And I think what's so funny about this, and I have blind spots in my life, it's not in this area, because I want to push the edge on that, and it's just something I connect with. But it's like, we're not changing truth. If I am reading the Bible on my iPad, or I'm reading it on my iPhone, or I'm reading it in the printed Bible, I'm not changing truth. If I'm a pastor or a church leader, there's nothing blasphemous, there's nothing unholy, there's nothing unfaithful.
Yeah.
And so I guess when I see stuff like that, I'm just challenged. I'm just challenged to ask God, where am I making that mistake in my own life, where I'm getting hung up on language that's not right? Point. Where do I need to adapt to help people connect with the story? And this one's really easy for me to diagnose because I'm on the outside, and it hurts me because I know that I never forget what it's like not to believe. I just never forget that. And I know for many, many years I was seeking, and well-meaning Christians, I'll just say they were well-meaning. Most of them probably were.
Most were, that's right.
Kem, we just started using the YouVersion Live a few months ago, and about 3 weeks ago, a guy left a praise report on the sermon notes about how his son had kind of strayed away from the Lord, but was at basic training, and had wrote his father this long letter just saying, "Dad, I'm sitting in chapel, I'm weeping, and I regret all the times I didn't go to church with you." And so the dad shares that online. I knew who it was because we don't have a whole lot of guys in the Army. Sought the dad out. It fit right into my sermon the next week about family. I said, "Can I share this story?" And so his story that he shared online became a story that, because our church had gathered around his son and prayed for his son before he left. And without that technology, I don't know that he would have come up and shared that story, because he kind of shared it anonymously. Mm-hmm. But it was just amazing that it's just a tool. Technology is not the end all be all. It's just a tool to connect and to get those stories out there, and to just really support one another in our faith.
I think I'm going to make up a word here, but like every medium, every action, every every medium, every action can be vulgarized. It could be distorted.
Yes,
it could be disrupted.
And it has. We've talked.
And it's not just technology that has that danger. My friend Phil Cook said something a while ago, a long time ago, and it stuck with me. He said, you don't throw something out just because it has a downside, because everything has a downside. Nobody threw out accounting principles because of Enron.
Yeah.
You know?
No, good
and,
point.
And that's kind of what I was like. There is a real downside, and as a matter of fact, that right now I'm on a little. I've grounded myself from too much screen time right now. I took it too far. Last year, I kind of started. I don't know. My eyes started turning gray, and I started losing color, and little pieces of my brain started dying in spots, and I was losing my muse. I'm like, what is this? I can't figure this out. And then I realized that everything I do is connected to a screen. And so I was like, I got to mix it up. And so, I mean, this is but that is like every area of your life. Take out technology. You know, people are dealing with food. They're dealing with lust. They're dealing with, I mean, you just got to, it's this moderation everywhere. How do you pour into how do you lean into the provider, not the provision?
Yeah, gee, so well put. You know, one of the things that I thought when I read this blog post that you did on, it's okay to pass notes in church, and you alluded to this, that there's been a paradigm shift in terms of communication. And so when I was a kid, I'm 47 years old. No, I'm 48. 48 years old. As a kid, information was still controlled. So some organization, may desire to take information and then disseminate it the way that they want to disseminate it. And the internet was a game changer for that in the mid-90s. And no longer can one control information. And with this paradigm shift, one has to enter into the conversation. To be part of that, and that this conversation is happening at different points. And that's what I see you really pointing out here, and the use of the technology even during church. It is to join into the flow of the conversation. It is not to compete with the conversation. Am I close here?
Yeah, and I think there's so many layers to that. Some of it's just sharing. It's not hoarding. I mean, that's part of it too, some of it is, and you know this, but I mean, and I do this too. I mean, there's two parts to a conversation. There's listening, and there's sharing.
Yeah.
And talking is not communication. Broadcasting is not communication. So even social media and passing notes in church, it can become a broadcast just as destructive as hoarding information just from a platform. Sure. There's a very strong component to listening, and there's a very strong component to just sharing from your own life, not sharing because you're pushing an agenda or trying to convert somebody on the spot. It's just this real life. And my friend really challenged me on this. I mean, I understood the principles, but when he finally put it and that's something I put in the blog post, is this is one of the most the newest beneficial disciple tools that we have at our disposal, and we overlook it. What does faith in Christ look like in a daily life? What does it look like when I go to the grocery store? What does it look like when I'm watching a movie? What does it look like when I'm facing loss? I mean, this is just real-time human. So we, church leaders and pastors, that is an overlooked discipleship tool. But it's such a hard thing for us to get our head around, because that means we're not sermonating. It means we're just sharing our life. And oh, that's two different things. I preach. Yeah. I don't share. That's a very vulnerable thing.
Well, it is. I also think, too, that for some people, Kem, that just new technologies are threatening in general. And so, I mean, some churches face the real challenge of that, they don't have anyone in those leadership positions in the church that are up with the technologies. So I think that, part of the challenge going forward is to try to educate churches, educate pastors, educate leadership so that they can get on board with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and no, it's just little small interventions. It's not taking over and becoming Mashable in your church, and it's just little small interventions. There's a story my pastor tells. I think I'm going to get it wrong, but I mean, he was doing some biology trip in college in Africa, and there was some giant scary monster in the jungle. I don't remember the details. I just remember when his life was threatened, his his jungle expedition guide was like, get small, get small, get small, get small. Yeah. That's how you protect yourself. And I kind of laugh, because sometimes it is threatening. There are there are real dangers. You know, I get concerned sometimes when I project where our culture is going, and I can't stop that. I can't stop where technology is going. I can't stop where transmedia is going. I can't stop the threats that evil will exploit, you
Sure.
know. But looking where if we go like this, we're sure not going to help anything, you know. So where can we be strong and have these little small interventions of truth? And the cool thing that we got going for us, what is culture really like seeking out? They're seeking out the underground. They're seeking out the alternative.
Yep.
They're seeking out what's countercultural, and that's what Jesus was all about. But Jesus used environments in the culture to share a countercultural message, you know, of transformation. And so that's complex, and humans get lazy, and so we just make things non-options, you know.
Non-options. I love it. Well, if you only have one option, then it makes life a lot simpler.
Yeah.
Sure does. It's that false sense of holiness that we hold on to sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, gee, that one hurt. No, it's very well said. Well, listen, thanks so much for just giving us your time this morning. We know that you're
Absolutely.
busy, and it means a lot to us. And just to put a shout out for your book, Less Clutter, Less Noise. We love that book. People can get it on Kindle edition, order the real copy. And
Yeah.
Of course, if you want less clutter, if you don't want to clutter up your bookshelf, Kindle edition.
No, we're not talking about the book on the iPad or your iPhone. We talking
doesn't
about
count.
We talking about the same copy that Jesus had.
Yeah.
Crazy. Kem, where can our listeners find you?
Well, that is such an interesting question, Tony.
On the
Right
internet.
now, like a turtle in its shell. My blog got hacked, so I'm in transition. But it's KemMeyer.com.
Oh,
KemMeyer.com.
you got
It's
hacked.
such a bummer. That
It is, and
it's
so the content's always changing. I think right now just direction my Twitter page, but I've been kind of quiet. But I'm going to ramp up again soon.
All righty. Well, we hate that for you. Hey, listen, thanks again for taking time out to be with us.
Hey, thanks for inviting me.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. See ya.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Always refreshing. It's the second time we've had Kem, and would really encourage you. In our show notes, we've got the link to 4 reasons why it's okay to pass notes in church. And I do think that she just taps into a whole generation and the way that they're communicating, and that's what this is about.